Have you ever watched a river in full flood, racing along like it has somewhere important to be? Imagine trying to cross it without a bridge, a boat, or even a rope. Now imagine the water suddenly standing still, like someone pressed pause. That is exactly what happened to God's people one unforgettable day. This is their story, and it is one worth remembering. Two breathless messengers slipped down from the rocky hills at sunset. Their clothes were dusty, and their eyes were bright with news. For 3 days they had hidden among the crags while Jericho's soldiers hunted for them. They had crept back across the Jordan and now stood before Joshua, the leader of Israel, trying to catch their breath. "Joshua," one said, still panting, "it's true. The people in Jericho are terrified. They know we are coming. Their hearts have melted with fear." Joshua nodded quietly. He had heard stories about Jericho's tall walls and strong gates. But he had also heard something else, something truer. God had promised, "I will be with you." And when God says that, you listen. The camp stirred with whispers. Families wrapped up their tents. Children held tightly to baskets and blankets. Warriors checked their spearheads. Priests polished the golden poles that would carry the Ark of the Covenant, the special chest that reminded everyone, God is with us. Then came the part that made everyone stare. Between them and the land God had promised lay the Jordan River, wide and wild. It was harvest season, the time when the Jordan overflowed its banks. The water boiled and hurried past, brown and foamy, carrying branches and reeds, slapping the banks as if to say, "Don't even try." Joshua walked the edge of the camp, calm and steady. "Get ready," he told the people. "Tomorrow, watch the ark. When the priests move, follow. Keep your distance so everyone can see because you have never gone this way before. And most of all, set your hearts on God. He is going to do something amazing." The next morning, the air felt new and clean. Dew sparkled on the grass. A hush fell over the camp as the priests lifted the ark onto their shoulders. The golden rings shone in the sunlight. Everyone kept back so the view stayed clear, just as Joshua had said. The river's roar seemed louder as they drew closer. You could feel the ground thrum with its power. A little boy squeezed his mother's hand. "How will we cross?" he whispered. "Watch," she said. "Just watch." Joshua spoke to the priests at the front. "Step into the river," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "God has promised to make a path." The priests glanced at the rushing water, then at the ark they carried. They shifted their feet and moved forward. 1 step, 2. The cold water curled around their toes and tugged at their ankles. Before this moment, Joshua had chosen 12 strong men, one from each tribe. "When God opens the way," he told them, "you will take a stone from the very place where the priests stand. You will carry it out on your shoulders. We will build something that will help our children remember what God did today." The 12 men looked at the river and swallowed. Those stones would be terribly heavy if there was no path to reach them. The priests kept walking until the water lapped over their feet, and then it happened. Far upstream, God touched the river. No one down below could see the exact place, a town called Adam, but they felt the change. The muscles in the river relaxed. The roar softened to a whisper and then to silence. The water stopped flowing, stacked up like a tall, invisible wall far away, and the great brown ribbon of the Jordan unknotted itself. Right where the priests stood, the riverbed appeared. Not mud, not sticky clay, dry ground. Pebbles glinted in the sun, clean and smooth, as if they had been waiting for bare feet to cross. A gasp ran through the crowd. The little boy's mouth fell open. "Mom, look! The river listened." "It did," she said softly. "It listened to God." The priests stood still, steady as trees, the ark resting on their shoulders. They did not move. Their faces were calm, and the sunlight traced warm lines along the ark's golden edges. "Go," Joshua called, his voice strong over the quiet. "Cross over," and the people went. At first they stepped carefully, toes testing the ground like small birds. Then mothers and fathers picked up children and hurried. Grandparents took firm hands. Sheep and goats trotted, ears flicking. Warriors marched with their heads high. The tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh crossed, armed and ready. Dust rose and drifted in the sunlight. Laughter broke out. Tears did too. Someone began to sing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath, as if it did not want to disturb this holy path. Halfway across, the 12 chosen men bent near the priest's feet. They picked up large river stones, smooth and round, each one heavy enough to make a shoulder ache. They balanced them carefully and carried them toward the far bank. All the while, the priests stood where the water had been deepest, waiting, holding the ark, quiet and patient. They waited until the last child had crossed, until the final goat had hopped over a stone, until the smallest cartwheel had rolled to the other side. "Come up," Joshua finally said. The priests stepped onto the far bank. At that exact moment, the river came alive again. Water rushed from upstream, sped past, and filled the channel. The Jordan took a long, splashing breath and flowed as it had before, as if it had simply paused to watch God's people go by. They set up camp at a place called Gilgal, not far from Jericho. The late afternoon sun was orange and friendly, and the 12 men lowered their 12 stones with a deep sigh of relief. Joshua arranged them into a circle, solid and simple, a quiet stack that said, "Stop and think." He also set 12 stones in the middle of the riverbed earlier, right where the priests had stood. Those would stay hidden under the water most days, secrets for the fish and God to remember together. The children gathered around the stones at Gilgal. "What do these mean?" one boy asked, running his hand over a smooth, gray surface streaked with white lines. The stone felt cool, like the inside of a cave. Joshua smiled. He waited until everyone could hear. "These stones are for your questions," he said. "Someday, when your children ask, 'What do these stones mean?' you will tell them, 'We crossed the Jordan on dry ground. The Lord stopped the river so we could pass. His hand is mighty, and he did it so everyone would know who he is, and so we would always remember to trust him." Mothers nodded. Fathers nodded. The warriors lifted their chins. The children leaned in a little closer to the stones, as if they could hear a story whispering up from them. That evening, fires glowed around the camp. Pots bubbled. Bread warmed on flat stones. People talked in low voices about what they had seen. Some laughed softly. Some wept with joy. Joshua looked around and felt a deep peace settle in his heart. God had promised to be with them, and he was. When morning came, the sky was bright and clear. The river flowed as it always had, but now everyone who had crossed looked at it differently. They could almost see the place where the water had stopped. They could almost hear the silence that had fallen. You might have expected them to shout or boast, but they did not. They stood a little taller, yes, but their eyes were humble. They knew who had done the miracle. The stones at Gilgal waited, a quiet circle of memory. Every time a child asked, "What do these stones mean?" the answer would rise again, steady and sure. God keeps his promises. God opens paths where there are none. God is worth remembering. And on the distant hill, the walls of Jericho gleamed in the sun, waiting for the next chapter of the story. If you were there, which stone would you choose for the pile at Gilgal, and what would you remember every time you saw it? Maybe today you can make your own little stone of remembering at home. Write down one time you felt helped, safe, or loved, and keep it where you can see it. That way, when life feels like a rushing river, you will know exactly where to look for courage. Thanks for listening. Next time, we will hear what happened to those tall walls of Jericho. You won't want to miss it.